Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Banner and Backbone. It's Nick Parrow and Lawrence Winterming, two of your three co-founders and bearded wizards. Um, for those of you who just saw me, welcome back. For those of you who missed me a couple minutes ago, welcome. It's Banner and Backbone, and we're gonna have a great discussion today. We're waiting on our guest Tim Fullerton if he's able to make it for the show today, and if not, we're gonna just keep it going because Lawrence and I like to talk. And I haven't had a chance to just hang out with Lawrence, and we can talk about progressive dad and progressive men things because we're progressive men who do progressive men things. And you
Yeah,
know what? That's fucking cool, isn't it?
it
Because
is
progressive
cool.
men are in style now. Because we ain't that old, raggedy, busted, dry up beige. We got some pretty sparkle on us. Good morning, Lawrence. How are you today, brother?
I am excellent, my friend, and I'm happy to see we're broadcasting under Banner and Backbone. I thought we were doing a sick of this broadcast, and I was going to say I'm here to disrupt some shit, and if anything goes wrong, it's Nick's show. You can't blame me. But
Blaming me today.
yeah, Uh,
It's
here's the
my
here's
fault.
the truth, chat. I want to read you all in on something. Right before this, if I look like I'm still astonished, it's because Nicholas Parrow here told me right before we got on air that he has never seen Hamilton. And I'm like, what? You love music and you
Love
love
music. Yep.
politics,
Yep.
but you haven't seen Hamilton. Nicholas, explain to the people what's wrong with you.
Uh, Nothing's wrong with me. I just don't like Lin-Manuel Miranda. So I never wanted to listen to the
Mm,
any of his stuff because he was always super pretentious to me, like just a really pretentious prick. And I
okay,
never
look,
really
I'm going to validate
enjoyed
you. He
that.
is pretentious. Lin-Manuel
Yeah.
Miranda is pretentious. He's one of those talented people that like knows that he's talented because so many people have told him. And so he comes across as pretentious, but it doesn't matter in this case because it is such a great piece of art that you gotta forgive it. I mean, I'm sure if I had half a brain right now, I could name other pretentious artists who annoy the fuck out of me because they're pretentious. But like, come on, chat, back me up. Like Hamilton, it's amazing. You gotta watch it. Founding Father,
Uh,
American
well,
Revolution.
I mean, we kicked the British out and then they said, "Hey, we'll get you back someday." And you know what? I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to the king. I don't want to go back to them. They're having some problems on their own. They don't need us back. Um, we can be all on our own here and be happy.
I,
You
I
know,
will note that Hamilton, in fact, does not advocate going back to the British. And there's a whole layer of jokes we're missing being able to make here because the king, George III, shows up in the play and he's a pretentious twat and he's fun to make fun of. So
is his name
combined,
Donald Trump
uh,
by
you
any
know,
chance?
somebody should absolutely do Donald Trump as King George from Hamilton because it's easily mockable. And I feel like there's
It. See, I could get behind a show like that. I could get behind that. And you convinced me during the pre-show that I should go watch Hamilton.
excellent, excellent. I personally am still grieving the fact that for years I had a plan to write a Broadway musical called The Clintons um,
Yes.
because what a fascinating relationship. Like there's so much to hate and I suppose admire in some ways. Although the two of them annoy the shit out of me, uh,
Yes.
but it was all ruined by Trump. Like the play would only work if she was also president, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah. The funny thing about the Clintons is I remember because of that whole situation under the desk, the situation in the situation room,
mhm,
um, or under the resoluteness of the resolute desk.
yeah.
Um, Her brother was a member of the same fraternity that I'm a part of, and
Oh
he was in
no.
and he was in college when it happened
Oh
in the
no.
fraternity too. And the
Oh
love
no.
letters that they sent to try and get her to come are disgusting to look back on and think about. But the raggedness that they gave him was intense.
I
And yeah, it's very misogynistic looking back on it, what they did and how they treated it. Um, because it's not her fault in any way. Um, but I do look back and I go, wow, those are interesting times when we used to think just the resoluteness of under a resolute desk was enough to get somebody impeached, yet
right.
knowing the size of a mini mushroom isn't.
Yeah.
And how,
I was alive and voting back then, and I absolutely wanted Bill Clinton to be impeached. Like at the time, I was like, "Oh, you lied under oath? Absolutely, you should be out." Like not that I was some crazy conservative in my youth. I was liberal. I just thought that the presidency is so sacred that if you lie under oath, then fuck you, man. Like, and if you lied about a blowjob, like what kind of low life
yeah,
moron are you?
if you can lie about that, what are you else are you lying about?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
the thing Fred talks about in for the aviation world. And my brother, who was or is an Apache mechanic and has worked on things like that for a very long time, is one of his core principles is trust and integrity. And if you break that, especially in the aviation world where Fred works and my brother work, is people die. Like the end result is if you break trust and you do take shortcuts and you let things happen as doors fall off of planes while
Right.
they're in midair
Exactly.
Boeing, or engines explode, or wings fall off, or an Apache falls out of the sky when it's most needed because the rotor clip breaks because somebody put a bad cotter pin back in. It's attention to detail. And if you're willing to lie about something so small and so easily verifiable, you're willing to lie about anything else. And like
Absolutely.
that's the fact.
Yeah. Morgan is
Uh,
saying in the chat, POTUSes have been mixing it up with women underlings in the Oval Office closet forever, with almost no exceptions. Gross and true, but not a capital offense. Sure. What I'm talking about is the lie. Like the fact that Clinton lied under oath was the thing that made me want him impeached. And you can look back on it as kind of a charming naivety on my part that I thought that was important enough that he deserved to be impeached for.
okay.
You know,
Tim's on his way too.
I honestly thought the way Clinton should have handled it is he should have gone up there and just been like, I did have sex with that woman. I did. We had sex in the Oval Office and it was
Uh,
good. It was
yeah,
right. Like
damn good.
she's an adult. I'm an adult. Sure, I employed my power as the president to,
Hello, Tim. Welcome. You
what's up,
you joined
Tim?
at a perfect point. We're talking about blowjobs under the Oval Office and Bill
Yeah.
Clinton.
Wow, I
Yeah,
did not
I was
realize.
trying to do my best Clinton impersonation there. So welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. I apologize for being late. Crazy
Mm,
day over here, but glad to join you guys.
Thanks for responding, and I'm glad you are able to join us. Tim, I know you weren't able to join in the pre-show. This is my good friend and colleague Lawrence Winterman, um, and co-founder of the Banner and Backbone Network, which you're on right now, which we did our 24-hour live stream event last weekend to demand the release of the Epstein files, working with friends like Frederick Pogue, who's our other co-founder, and contributors like Ellie Leonard, Melissa Corrigan, Shane Urich, and others to try and build a new space um, for progressive voices that speak progressive values that are not framed in right wing terminology and are using our values at the core so that we can, shift the Overton window way, way, way back to our side without telling them that and using their words to distract. Um, and you're a perfect person to be able to talk about that with. So I'm glad to have you back for a second time to come meet Lawrence this time. Um, Lawrence, do you want to say hi before we let Tim fully introduce himself?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
It's good to meet you, Tim.
You too.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with Nick and Fred getting Banner and Backbone up and running. I also have another Substack with one of my childhood best friends, Dana Dubois.
Two other Substacks.
well, two other Substacks. I also have a science fiction Substack where I'm publishing
Oh, cool.
my novel and short stories. But yeah, you know, we're Dana and I have been broadcasting on Substack for probably about 5 or 6 months at this point. And we were fortunate enough to come across Nick and Frederick and, talking about politics on Substack. It seems like everybody's doing it, but there's a lot to say. We are not living in boring times.
That is absolutely true. That is for sure.
So, good morning, everybody. Welcome. We have Tim Fullerton with us from the Find Out podcast, previously from White Dudes for Harris, a very well respected consultant that I know of that isn't trying to break the political system in a bad way. He's trying to break it in a good way. And a very, very strong progressive advocate for other men, for values that are moral and just and people care about. And so we wanted to bring him on again for what I titled a progressosphere talk because the manosphere sucks and I don't want to be a part of that shit. But I want to be a part of one where Tim is involved because people like him care and have values. And we're super excited and glad to have you with us this morning. Tim, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's such a nice introduction. I guess I got to come more often so I get this praise. It feels good for the ego, you know?
I'm here for you, brother. I like building people's egos up. That's how we get you back, right? We gotta trick you with something fun.
That's true. That's true. Well, it works. So thank you for having me.
Good. I'm so glad to have you back, and it's great to have you here. And I wanted to talk about progressive values because I've gotten a chance over this week to have some really interesting conversations with folks like Dean Blundell, with yourself now, with Chris Goldsmith again. We're meeting with Bobby Jones for a second time next week, and Ken Harbaugh, and we're trying to really build together a community that's a lot for me, a lot of veterans, because that's who I've been around forever because
Mhm.
those are my folks. But also just a community of men who care about things. And I was wondering if you could let our audience know a little bit about what you believe are things that we can fight for
Sure.
as progressive men.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of stuff, and I think that the right has co-opted a lot of our beliefs, and they talk about it, but they don't actually go through with it. You know, I think that uh, uh, protecting those of us who need protecting and supporting those who need to be supported is about as masculine as it comes. And I think the right has sort of turned it into this like, thumping your chest and like, talking down to people. I think that's the antithesis of masculinity. And I think it's time for us to take that back. And, I think the second that they get a little bit of pushback, they completely melt and whine and complain that, we're being mean to them essentially. And, we see progress. I mean, I have conflicted thoughts about Governor Newsom, but over
Mhm.
the last 2 weeks, I have been cheering that guy on in a way that I've never cheered before because he is standing up for democracy and he is saying, no, we are not going to just sit back and let Republicans in Texas steal 5 seats from us, steal 1 seat from us in Louisiana, seats in Missouri and all these other places.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight back and I'm gonna do it with the will of the people. And, I think I think that's what the progressive sphere needs is, we are not fighters unless we have to be. And in this situation, we have to be. And I think Newsom said it best. He's like, if they're going to throw a punch, I'm going to throw a punch back. Because if we don't, we're going to see a situation where in a lot of these places, minority voices in particular are completely silenced because they go from having a voice to being shoved into these super conservative districts. And I'll give you an example of the one in Louisiana because I talked
Which
to.
I just dropped the link for your episode from yesterday
Oh,
about
great,
because it
thank
was
you. So
such
we
a
we
great interview.
oh, thank you. Yeah, so we interviewed a man named Cleo Fields. He was elected to Congress in November. He was a member of Congress in the '90s as well, so he was been around for two different time periods. But the Louisiana is suing to take that district back. They're actually claiming that white people's civil rights are being violated by giving a second minority majority district back to the people. And, in this situation, if they are successful, they're about 35% of Louisiana our population is black. And so right now, 2/3 of the members of Congress from Louisiana are Democrats. And so they have two voices. So it's 33% instead of 35, but it's pretty close. They take that seat. They're going to split that seat between Steve Scalise and Speaker Johnson, which then means that the black population in Louisiana will be 35% with just 1/6 of the representatives in Congress. That is outrageous. That is against the Voting Rights Act. That is against the Civil Rights Act. In normal times, I would say there's no way that they are going to cede, but in this Supreme Court, I'm not so sure. They did make Alabama redraw some maps, the same Supreme Court. So if they're going to follow the rule of law, this should be a no-brainer that this gets dismissed. But I'm just not sure that is going to happen. That happens, all of a sudden we're down 6 seats, and then they're going to go to Missouri next. They're going to go to Indiana, and we can then go South Carolina. Like, a lot of these places are already pretty gerrymandered, but like it can make a difference. And so, the people's, having power on, representative power is at threat now. And, if they're successful, could be a situation where Republicans lead forever and have a minority of the support because of these things that they're doing. And so it is very important for us to fight back and scream and yell about this. So I was glad we were able to have Congressman Fields on the other day, because I don't think most people know that this is not just about Texas. Like, there was this case as well, and it's just as important.
Yeah, and I didn't know about it at all until you all brought it out on the Find Out podcast, and I just reposted it. I can't cross post it, but I just reposted it from Banner and Backbone
Appreciate that.
on our show, so that, or just in the notes, so that everybody can try and find it. Please go watch that episode, because it's really important what they're talking about, and I want to talk about it to you in a progressive framing instead. As I said this, I just did a live right before this where I was talking about the FBI raid on John Bolton and what they're doing, but it got into just general civics and how we can reframe our conversations. Do you think it's worthwhile? Because I have an opinion on this, but I definitely want to hear yours. Do you think it's worthwhile to stop calling what California or Illinois or New York is doing as gerrymandering, and instead call it trigger laws, and only refer to what we're doing as trigger laws and constitutional changes?
I think that's probably right. And there is some early polling that suggests that, Californians are a little bit confused about this, because for one, they don't do off-year ballot initiatives very often. And two, we have told them rightly that gerrymandering is wrong. In a vacuum, I 100% support making the lines be drawn by nonpartisan officials, or at least bipartisan officials, and have it truly be representative. However, like we've talked about, in this particular case, we don't have that option. If we play by those rules, we will end up needing to win even more seats, and it will make it more difficult to hold on. So I think you're right. And I think Newsom has been pretty good about saying, like, we are back into a corner. We do not have any options here. If we are going to save democracy, we need to do this. And I think that is exactly the right messaging. In my state of New York, it's a little bit more complicated to do the gerrymander thing because of the way our Constitution works. And so I think, Hochul signaled the other day that they are going to pass a bill to essentially do what Gavin's doing, but it's a 2-term process. So like, you can't change it for this current election, but in 2028 we can. So, and there were some maps that were drawn in New York that would have taken 3 or 4 seats back from Republicans. I mean, they were pretty funny maps, and somehow me living in Brooklyn at the time, in my old place, somehow got looped into the Staten Island district. But that's Nicole Malatakis, who is a Republican. So I was very, very happy to vote against her, and then the maps get thrown out. But I think they're going to go back to that. And, I think you're right. I think this is a trigger law that we don't want. And frankly, like, I think a Democrat in Congress should just put forth an independent commission bill and make them vote it down, right, and show really what's going on here. And it's like, okay, well, we're not going to be nice anymore because you have basically taken that option away from us, and you stole 5 seats during what was supposed to be a special session to deal with flooding, of which they did none. And so, yeah, it's time to fight fire with fire. And I think that is why everybody is, all these ridiculous memes of a shirtless Gavin Newsom all ripped and everything are
Just
coming
freaking
out,
funny as hell.
which is hilarious. And, and his press team, and there's a woman behind that social account. I
Camille
can't remember her
Zapata.
name.
Camille
Camille
Zapata.
Zapata.
Right? Yeah.
Who's
We
just
talk about her a lot. She's
she,
awesome.
she is phenomenal. And, she has found the right voice of mockery,
Hmm.
Right.
and they hate it. And,
they do.
because it takes power away from them. And I hope that more Democrats look at this and go, maybe I should do this too.
Yeah. I think it's important in the conversation to point out that the maps that Texas had were already gerrymandered, right? Like those were not clean maps. Those were very highly gerrymandered maps already. And what they're doing is actually taking it beyond gerrymandering. We should come up with a new word like Trump-mandering or something where, they are taking it and pushing it to a point where it's blatantly anti-constitutional. Somebody did the math. And the way the new maps are going to work essentially is that if you're white in Texas, it's a 1 to 450,000 ratio between representative and population. If you're Hispanic, it's 1.1.5 million. And if you're black, it's 1 to 2 million.
Yes.
So really, literally, if you're Latino in Texas, your vote counts as much as 3 white people's votes. And if you're black, it's 5, right?
Yep.
And so the math is just egregiously bad, literally devaluing the votes of people of color. And we can't go soft on the messaging on this one.
No, and there is another piece of this too that is this could backfire on them, because what they have to do is they are taking some districts that right now are Republican +10s and +12s and making them Republicans +7. Now, in a normal year, that's probably safe. But we have seen, there was the special elections in Florida that we lost, but one of them was in Matt Gaetz' district. In November, he won by 33 points. Then in the special, in February or March or wherever it was, Gay Valancourt, who was the Democrat, lost by 18. Now, that sounds like a blowout, except that she decreased the margin by 15 points. Yep. So if you're in a +7 and you signed or voted yes on this horrendous bill, the greatest transfer of wealth from poor people to wealthy people in this country, I think I would be a bit scared of that being +7 instead of being +10 or 12. And, those Dems are going to vote. And, probably Dems that in those districts that are like, there's no chance that my person, I'm just not going to, are probably looking at this now and saying, hell no, I'm going to. So there is an opportunity that this does not go as well as that they were anticipating.
And I love that the optimism on that, because I wanted to ask you about the New York situation. And as you said, it was 2 terms that would take into effect. Is there a way that the New York lawmakers and legislators and governor could use their power to change that so that they could do it as a trigger law within a single term, just to say, not because my vision of a trigger law would even go further than what they're doing, is only if this situation happens, it automatically triggers and we district, and the maps get redistricted into literally only blue wins. Is there a way that we could get New York to do that? I know it's in the Constitution, so it's harder there.
What I could say, so I was in the state government of New York for a little while when we were trying to pass the Equal Rights Amendment, which has now since passed in New York. But I think the Constitution rules and laws are pretty ironclad. I do know that Governor Hochul seems very, very committed to doing everything she can to solve this problem. I will say that even if the maps do not get redrawn this year, there are districts that I think we can pick up. I think that there is, what's his face? Mike Lawler's district, for example, who's weirdly been really promoting the BBB as this huge win and keeping it in the news, which is a very curious thing to do.
Yeah, that's a stupid idea.
Strange choice,
it's like losing, tens of thousands of his own constituents lost Medicaid and thousands of them lost SNAP benefits. And so So I think there's that one. There is a one in Long Island, Nick LaLota, I believe, which is really gettable. So I think no matter what happens, New York is going to have more uh, uh, Democratic members of Congress after this election. But you're right. Like what we really need to do, I hate to say this, is to do a real gerrymander based off of a trigger and get rid of all of them, if not maybe one or two. And I think, we looked at Gavin Newsom's map, which he originally put out, which is like, I could do this if I wanted to, which I actually kind of wish he had done. But, I understand why he didn't. And so, yes, I think no matter what, there will be more Dems. I don't know if they can do this before because it's pretty tough. And they have the trifecta here. So like, it's not an issue of getting the legislature to go along with it. I think it is just like the way that's written. I think it would get tossed if they try to go around it.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is a situation where Democrats believe in good governance, and we have for so long that there are states like New York and Michigan and Washington State, where I lived for a very long time, where they're independent redistricting commissions, right? Like Washington State literally can't change its maps because
Right.
it is fully embodied in the redistricting commission. It's also already an 8-10 split in favor of Democrats, and it's really hard
Right.
to redraw maps as 9-1 without going insane with the gerrymandering.
Right.
So, it's kind of another example of we've been playing by the rules for a really long time and they haven't. And we're a little bit hamstrung by things like independent
Yeah.
commissions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why you've seen so much focus on California, New York, and Illinois in
Yeah.
particular. Maryland could probably, I think they're a 6-2 or a 4-2, and they can go to a 5 and a 7-1 probably because they could probably get. Oh no, it's one. There's only one. Andy Harris, who is a crazy man.
They're all
They could.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for Maryland because Maryland is so progressive, but like Maryland's also elected Republicans over the last
Yeah.
20 years. A few instances.
Yeah.
I mean, the last governor they had was a Republican,
Yeah. Hogan.
and Hogan, and not a crazy one, but still a Republican. But I think Westmore's looking at trying to get that down to zero. So I think we have been playing by the rules, but I think Democrats are realizing like the rules don't really apply anymore. And
Right.
if we continue to play by the rules, we will find ourselves in a permanent minority and we will never get power again.
Right.
So one of the things that I just thought of in this conversation is the Constitution gives us as people, as voters, the power to decide elections, and it gives states the power to decide when elections are held and when elections happen. Do you think we could muster enough support and energy to have snap elections and just re-fucking elect Congress? Because isn't it our power as Americans to say when enough is enough and tear down a tyrannical government that is in our way and is anti-American and is destroying our way of life? Because they are playing by their own set of rules, yet some of the most progressive presidents in our history didn't follow the rules either. FDR didn't follow the rules when he enacted a lot of his things. We would consider what he did unconstitutional now, but he did it anyways. Shouldn't we do it? Because they're going to do it too. And if we do it first and faster and harder, we control the narrative.
I'm not a constitutional scholar, nor am I an attorney.
Neither am I. I'm just asking.
So I think that I don't think they can, because I think that the Constitution set the term lengths in Congress, both for the House and for the Senate. So I think,
but it does give us a recall mechanism, and we could recall these members.
Certain places, they don't all have. Not everybody has that. Like California has obviously a very liberal recall law, because clearly they've done it once and were successful, and then they tried to do some, wasted a bunch of money and lost by like 1 billion points. But like, in New York, there is no recall option, I don't believe, because we have, and he's a Democrat, a very corrupt mayor of New York City, and who is Eric Adams, who literally I kid you not, one of his aides the other day stuffed a bunch of cash in a chip bag, those like individual sized chip bags, handed it to a reporter. The reporter opens it, sees the cash, immediately goes to the police. because they're obviously like, what are you doing? And then she gets charged. We can't recall him because that would have passed. The
Yeah.
governor has some flexibility there, but I think is just decided to let the election play out, which is probably the right call. And she's got an election next year, so she has to kind of be careful. But it is a state by state thing. So like I don't think like snap elections work in a parliamentary system, but I don't
Right.
think
Yeah.
in a representative democracy it really can work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think the way the Constitution is structured, it would require a constitutional amendment to change.
Yeah.
And, at that point, that you would have to get it passed through Congress and you would have to get it approved by,
Two-thirds of
Well,
the
we
states.
say we say that, but that also didn't happen when slavery was abolished. That was not how the 13th Amendment came to be. They did not follow constitutional law to abolish slavery. So I think it's time we stop saying the Constitution can't allow us, because the Constitution says what we mean it to say, right? Like it means it's a living document that is supposed to live with us and breathe with us and grow with us. And yeah, it's old as shit right now and outdated, but I think we should be using the levers of power in the most aggressive ways possible right
I don't.
now. And I think if it's in the state constitutions, maybe we should be encouraging governors and uh, supermajorities to just do it.
I mean, the only thing I think on that though is that the second that gets challenged, the Supreme Court will toss it back at our face. And I mean, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do like I'm not above performative measures to show that we are doing things like that is fine. But I do think that that 6-3 court makes things a hell of a lot more difficult because there is nothing we can do to them. I
But
mean, I am in favor of expanding the court, but like in this current environment, that is not possible.
right.
could
So
they
that
justify that voting is dictated by the states and that states' rights do not apply here? Could they justify? I mean, I know they can, but do you think they could really justify that in a way that MAGA or Republicans would believe? If we force their hand, because we have to stop playing nice. Like we need to be doing emergency petitions to the Supreme Court every other day saying Texas is doing unconstitutional things or Louisiana. I think we're playing too nice still. Like we're still playing like we have rules that have to be followed. Donald Trump does emergency orders every day. Like, why shouldn't we?
yeah. Well, I think the challenge, I don't disagree with any of that. I think the challenge is he has the courts on his side when he does this stuff and we do not. And
Yeah.
that is the problem. We have the lower courts. There are more
Yeah.
democratic but the problem is that they're just a stop to the Supreme Court. So and the Supreme Court has shown that they do not care about precedents because if they did, they wouldn't have overturned Roe v. Wade. And all of them lied when they went in front of their confirmation hearings and said, this is settled law. We don't need to talk about this. And then the second they got a chance, they ripped it right away. So that stuff, I completely agree with. They are they are the most activist court that we have ever had in our history.
Yeah.
And, they scream about activist judges, but it's always projection with them. And so, but I mean, there's no harm in trying things unless you continually lose. And then if you continually lose, you basically burn your base and they're like, well,
Yeah.
why am I fighting if I continue to lose? That I think is the worry with continually doing things. I mean, I'm all for slowing down and basically grinding things to a halt because eventually they won't get to certain things after right. And the reality is after this year, next year, they're not going to pass anything because they're going to be so terrified they're going to be running. So if we could slow them down over the next 4 months, so if there are things like that, I'm all for it,
Yeah.
reading the bills
Yeah.
aloud, doing all the things but I do worry about filing too many suits that just lose and then would
Yeah.
depress the base that we need to turn out in record numbers next year to wipe these guys away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, if I were able to offer a friendly amendment to your proposal,
Yeah.
I would say, if we're going to do something that looks like it would require a constitutional amendment, why don't we pursue something like a national referendum, right? An amendment that would allow us to do national referenda where, when it came to enshrining abortion rights, we could pass that as a national referendum. When it came to gun control, we could pass that. If it came to something like saying, we need, this Congress to wipe the slate clean and do a revote, we could pass that as a part of a national referendum. The states have gone. Many states have national or have statewide referenda, and I think there's a possibility there if we were to advocate for that at the national level, that maybe that kind of pries the door open to really the situation on the ground right now that you're trying to address is we've got the government held by crazy Republicans across all three branches, and we don't have an eject button, right? And we just kind of have to let these crazy people drive until 26 or 28. And we don't have any mechanism by which we can kind of call no confidence vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, and I think that I think what Democrats really should be doing right now is being as obstructionist as they possibly can, but also articulating a different vision for the future.
Right.
Which I'll be honest, like really hasn't happened yet. And I think that we're 7 months into this nightmare, and it's still a bit early. But like I think that the reason why Gavin has taken off the way he has in the last 2 weeks is because he stood up and fought. But I don't think that is enough. I think that we need to come up with, what does the future look like? And it's not return to normalcy, because the return to what we had before was not working for people either. It needs to be. And I think it's time for universal health coverage. I think it's time for, universal child care. These things that we have talked about forever. And now people are really seeing the damages of essentially what is an austerity government that has been the same as what happened with Brexit is kind of happening here. Laying off 300,000 federal employees. Those are good paying jobs. It's going to decimate the DC area. Cutting SNAP benefits from people, which means the little money they had to spend on goods will now have to go to food. The Medicaid cuts. Now people can't go to the doctor, so they're just going to go to the emergency room, run up $100,000 bills and gum up the emergency rooms, which is what we see every time people lose health care. And so I think that, we have 3 years of this to go. And I think all of this stuff, for the most part, will be implemented by then. They were unfortunately quite smart in putting some of the damaging cuts right after the midterms. But the economy is super weak right now. We're going to probably see rate cuts soon. Like, they are going to be in a very bad spot next year. And I think it is time for a merger of some of the moderate and liberal or progressive visions into one. And I think there's no reason why we couldn't even just start with a public option. What is the problem with the government competing with private sector? If the private sector beats them, okay, we don't do it anymore. But let's try. I bet you'll start to see prices go down because they aren't going to have any profits that they have to hit. Like, there's something has to give here, but we need a messenger that can articulate a vision. Otherwise, this is the future, and the future of Republican governance is just going to be worse and worse, and the income gaps are going to continue to skyrocket, and poor people and middle-class families are going to be left behind.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to have any middle-class families left if this continues, and we're all just going to be working poor.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, look, we had Mr. Global on our show last week, and we were talking about energy prices because he's been in the oil and gas industry for 33 years. I worked in the Interior Department, where most of the onshore and offshore oil production on public lands runs through Interior. So I know a little bit about it too. And he issued a very stark warning to people. He's like, look, because of this bill, we are slowing down energy production in this country while we are building energy intensive AI data centers. I don't know if people know this, but AI is a wonderful thing. And if used correctly, it is super energy intensive. So we are building these massive centers, and they killed all of the renewable energy credits for new development. He's like, I wouldn't be surprised if this winter alone, your electric bill costs more than your mortgage or your rent, because that is how much demand is coming online with no additional capacity. Because I'm sorry, no one's building coal-fired power plants anymore. No one's building very few natural gas ones, and nuclear is forget it. So where is your new generation going to come from? It's going to come from solar, and it's going to come from wind. And if you take those credits away, the wind in particular will be wiped out, and the solar will slow, and your energy bills will go up. And that is 100% on Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress who passed this bullshit bill.
I can already tell you it's impacting because after the credits were said they were going to be cut. The company that I leased my solar panels from sent us a Chapter 11 bankruptcy notification saying that they were going to go out of business and they were going to be selling our solar panel loan to somebody else at some point, or trying to restructure to stay in business so that they had money, just because they lost the fucking solar credits. Just on the knowing that they were coming and losing them, they already had to close. They already had to say, we're going to lose business and we're out.
The infuriating thing about this, other than it was just a horrible thing to do, is there are more solar and wind jobs in this country than coal jobs. Why on earth are we talking about saving coal jobs when we have a fast growing system of renewable energy that also provides clean air and
in red states,
red states, in particular red states, Arizona. I mean, Arizona's kind of bluish, but like all of those southern states where the sun shines all the time. And there's
the
also
wind blows strong here.
The wind blows Texas.
We get wind. Like Texas gets wind. Their wind farms are massive.
Yep. And farmers get credits or actually get paid for allowing solar on their lands, or wind on their lands. And now all of a sudden we're going to take that away for what? And, it's going to devastate people. Like, people cannot afford their electricity bills to go up 3, 4, 5 times. And you have to produce more to keep the costs low. It's the same with housing. The reason housing prices continue to skyrocket is there's not enough housing. And it is a supply and demand thing. And you would think that this guy who was a successful businessman would understand that. But of course, he's not a successful businessman and has run everything into the ground, and he's doing the same thing now.
Yeah. Everything Trump touches dies.
Yes. Everything.
Oh, and so I dropped a link into the chat. It was actually a post by Shane Urich that he and I do a talk called Palin Talk. And he was and we were talking about the AI data centers, and he was researching them and doing a lot of research into where they're being built and what regulations they're going around to put them in place. And I don't think people even realize, like you talked about, people don't even realize that these things are going up and how energy intensive it is. Most people don't even realize either where they're putting these sites up. They're putting them up in sites that are contaminated. They're putting them up in sites they're putting them up in sites that are brown and black sites and irradiated prior nuclear testing sites. And they're skirting around EPA regulations through and using dirty tricks behind the scenes to pollute and kill the populations that live there, which just happen to tend to be poor, non-white, or poor and white, and a lot of immigrant communities. And it's going to lead to a lot of health problems and the closure of the hospitals. Can you talk a little bit on that, Tim? Because I know you have some really good experience in these sectors. And I want to know what your thoughts are on like the damage that like skirting the EPA can do.
Oh, it could be devastating. And this is like, it's almost like a return to the 60s and 70s, because it was a Republican that put the EPA that signed the bill that established the EPA. It was Richard Nixon, who, as dirty and corrupt as he was, he would not be a Republican today either. Based on when you look at what he was actually doing outside of the cheating and the stealing part. But this is, big business in the industry. They're not going to put a power plant in the rich neighborhoods, because they'll get pushback from politicians and they'll get pushback from wealthy neighbors. They will put them in poor areas. They will claim that it will create jobs, and what it will probably do is make them more sick, depending on the type of energy that is used to power those plants, which my guess is that at this point, it's probably either going to be natural gas or coal, probably more natural gas, which still has harmful methane and all of these things. That is going to be a real problem. And then what you started to point out is the other piece of this is that with this BBB bill, there is an estimated 300 hospitals across the country that are going to close their doors because they're not going to get that Medicaid money anymore. And those hospitals tend to be where? In poor rural areas. This is really going to devastate red states in particular. So as you imagine, if you live in a rural area and your hospital is 20 minutes away, that hospital closes, the next hospital is probably an hour away. Now, if you're having an aneurysm, a stroke, a heart attack, that additional 40 minutes is probably lethal. Or you just don't go because it's too far away. And there is going to be a cascade of negative effects that happen when you do these things. Also, those are jobs that in rural areas can't afford to lose, like nurses' jobs or like even the people who work the snack bar and the janitors and all this stuff. Where are they supposed to work if they don't have those hospitals anymore? There's no businesses coming in. Like, in these areas, they're being closed because they're not profitable. And so that there is going to be no job that replaces it. So we're going to continue to see job losses well into next year. And then really the hammer's going to get dropped in 2027 after the Medicaid pieces really come into effect.
Yeah.
So it's bad.
It's particularly egregious to note that they timed everything so that the worst effects of the BBB wouldn't happen until after the midterm elections, right? Like I think even that is a point that we need to hammer home on, that things are bad already. The BB bill is making things worse now. It is going to make them so much worse after the midterm elections, when essentially people have lost the ability to kind of change their minds about anything.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that the Democrats will be smart on trying to repeal some of the worst parts of the BBB.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really difficult, obviously, with the President Trump. But it sets the stage also to have a friendly terrain in 2028 with whoever emerges from what I was joking the other day, 3,000 Democrats that are going to run for president.
Right.
Which I think will make our candidates stronger because they're going to have to stand out. They're going to have to fight. But Tim,
did you want to use this moment to announce your candidacy for president?
Maybe
2001
vice president.
I think that I can best serve this country by running Find Out Media. That's my answer.
Okay.
That's a good answer. That's a solid answer.
I had to put on my politician hat there to not say yes or say no. Right.
That was good. That was really good.
That was a good obfuscated answer.
Right.
But you left it open.
People drafted me. If the people really wanted me.
That's exactly right. Like if there was some sort of, I don't know if you guys remember the draft Wesley Clark thing back in 2004.
Oh yes.
I think, which shows all of our age. But if there's a draft Tim Fullerton, I'd have to listen to the will of the people.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. And my main focus is on making sure Democrats win both houses next year, and then we elect a Democrat in 2028.
Yeah,
that's what I love hearing. So I want to ask, what are your because we only got about 9 minutes left, and I want to make sure we respect your time. What are your favorite resources that people could go to that we could link in the post-show notes that they can get actionably engaged from?
That is a great question. So I think there's a couple. One is if there are open elected positions in your local area, I strongly recommend that you run for office. And I strongly recommend that you go to runforsomething.net. I have news for you folks. The people who win elections are no different from you or I. And in fact, in many instances, they are so much more incompetent. And sometimes it takes a narcissist to think that they can lose some of these jobs, right? But the reality is being a member of Congress is not that hard. So, anybody can do it. But we need to start at the local level. Run for your city council, run for your school board, run for anything. And because we need to build a feeder system, because once you get good at the lower level, it makes it a lot easier to go up the rung. Yep. So that's one. Obviously, I want everybody to watch the Find Out podcast or listen wherever you stream.
Absolutely.
But also, I think, what's that?
No, I was going to say, if you have not subscribed yet, go subscribe to the Find Out podcast. I'm going to drop their link here in the chat while Tim is talking too.
Yeah. And we are, for those who don't know, we are developing Find Out Media as we are building a network as well, because we know that there needs to be more voices, and that is what we're going to do. And then, I think that there's a lot of great authors on Substack to follow, or political commentators. Simon Rosenberg is a great one. It really, and I remember in the midterms, he was one of the ones that accurately called the Democrats would come close to winning. And he was also much more muted in November of last year about Kamala's chances of winning. So he is a very good person to get a realistic picture. I think his thing's called the Hopium Chronicles, I think.
Right. Hopium Chronicles, yeah.
He is super great. One of the ones I trust the most. So if you're looking for a reality check, that's a good place to check too.
Okay, awesome. Those are great resources. Thank you. And I'm going to make sure that we link those in the chat, but also in our post show notes, because any resource that people can go to and get information from and know that it's trusted is really important right now.
Yeah.
Um, I also wanted to offer a suggestion for the Find Out podcast on
Sure.
your segment with Luke for the Get Fucked segment, because I know you're having trouble with that intro. Um, and I wanted to suggest presenting Luke with It's Get Fucked.
Okay. So it's funny because the last two, because my wife gave me a mouth of shit for this too, because she's like, "What's
Yeah,
wrong with you? Why are you saying it that way?" I mean, it ended up being kind of funny, right? Because then we all just
yeah,
kept
yeah.
falling over each other and saying these ridiculous things. What I landed on was, it's now time for Get Fucked presented by Luke. That's how I was saying it. But it's basically the same, just kind of a reverse around. But yeah,
Yeah, put Luke in the front.
when I was saying Get Fucked with Luke, also, and he'd be so embarrassed. I'm gonna say it anyways. He has because he is 22 years old. He's in very good shape and he's an attractive guy. He gets a lot. His DMs are
Blown up.
spicy, I will
Yeah.
say,
Ooh, I bet.
Spicy.
and across the spectrum. I would
Yeah.
also say. So I have to be careful. I don't want people to get too excited about my incorrect announcement. So yes, it's funny. It's so funny. It's also at the end of the show, so it makes me so happy that so many people recognize it because it meant they listened all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
That was not intentional on my part to mess up to see if people caught it. But because like it's hard, right? You're like Nick, you're doing it like when you're moderating and you're also trying to talk and you're also trying to keep things moving. It's really hard in the moment
Yeah.
to do that. And uh, it takes a certain skill. And I've done it for like 15 years now, and I still stumble and fall all over myself. So it is, but you're right. The presented by is much better.
It's so like awkward sounding because like you don't want to, like you said, you don't want to say Luke gets fucked or Luke, like something like that's like the title to a new, like Luke's porn video. Like
Right,
we're
right.
not on
That's
OnlyFans
the
here.
OnlyFans site.
Oh, I'm
Which,
joking.
by the way, would probably make a ton of money for you
Dude,
guys if you just did a Luke gets fucked segment where he
I,
just tells people to get fucked.
I
You would
told
make
him.
so much money on OnlyFans.
I told him, I was like, man, like, I know you're not going to do it and you really shouldn't, but let me tell you, you would make so much more money doing that than like cobbling together the like creator programs from the various sources. I mean, he does really well, but
Hmm.
he doesn't like that suggestion. So,
Well, Luke, I'm
yes,
encouraging you as a slightly older man who is freely open about being like comfortable in his sexuality. And
right.
brother, take off your shirt, go on to OnlyFans, and just sit there with your shirt like three quarters unbuttoned and just tell people J.K. Rowling's a bigot. Get fucked. And just do that over and over. You would make so much fucking money.
You know,
And people would love it.
it could work for 5 years and probably retire.
Right.
Oh my
Honestly,
God.
with
He wouldn't
that.
even have to work that long. I give him a month and he'd have $1 million. Like he'd be like, guys, I'm the billionaire class now. Like, I don't care. I'm out.
I'm
Yeah,
so rich I've become a Republican.
Yeah, I think he's going to pass, but we've certainly made that suggestion for sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's an open invite now for anyone on the Find Out podcast who I haven't already invited to come on and join us.
Great.
And do collaborations because it sounds what you all are doing, and I know you and I have talked separately from this a little bit, Tim, is that like we need a space for people to talk. We need a
Yeah.
space for men to be able to talk. We need a space for progressives to be able to talk. We need a space for women to have a voice, but equal. Like our space is for everybody to talk equally with a voice that has dignity, that's solid, that's on the foundation of sovereignty and understanding that each person
Yep.
has value for being a person. And so I truly appreciate you coming on with us again. I know you just told everybody where they can find you and all of these great resources. So I'm not going to ask you to do that again. But I do want to ask you before I close out the show and give Lawrence a little bit of moment to say his piece is what is one piece of advice or piece of hope that you can offer everyone in the audience today?
If we stick together, we will get through this. Like, there is strength in numbers. That's why these spaces online are so important as well, because we hear from people all the time in Oklahoma, Nebraska. They're like, I feel so alone. You're not alone. You find the right places. And we're, through the Find Out team, working on some ways that we can actually create some spaces for people to just chat. And Substack's not the best for that daily stuff, but whether it's Discord or Slack or something, I think we'll be, talking about that in the near future. But we will get through this. There have been dark times before, but if we stick together and we fight, we'll make it.
Dang it, that's an amazing message. Lawrence, would you like to close us out for the day?
I don't have anything better to say than what Tim just said. So let's leave it there, my friend.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for joining Banner and Backbone, supporting what we're doing. I just want to, before we close out, because it's super cool, is we have now made over $1,000 in support for Epstein-related victim suits, pro-democracy efforts, and we're calling out and working hopefully to get with Allison Gill to support her FOIA requests to get those FBI training videos on the scrubbing of Trump's name. So please, everyone in the audience, consider becoming a paid subscriber with Banner and Backbone. Consider becoming a paid subscriber with the Find Out podcast with Tim. They're amazing. I listen to their show every Tuesday and Thursday before I get on with Lawrence and Dana's show to listen to them. It's a great show to wake up to. They put a lot of information on, and we love it. Before we go, Lawrence, can you do your favorite segment on blocking a bigot?
Oh, yeah.
Because we have an individual in the name named Kevin Lehigh.
Fuck you, Kevin Lehigh. Get the fuck out of here. You're blocked.
And Banner and Backbone, through me at the moment, has blocked the bigot. So with that, with hope, reach out to each other. Hang on. We're in this together. We, the people, make this better. Thanks, y'all.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Great to meet you. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.